All right, stream's up. They should be able to hear us now.
Alright, let me just turn off my AC.
Yeah. Don't need to be cold.
Don't want that to be blasting.
Let's see. We can.
Waiting on the fucking ads to finish. Alright, there we go.
Twitch Turbo.
Yeah.
You get ads on our own channel?
Well, I'm on my Twitch.
Ah, okay.
Not. Okay, let me rephrase it. I'm on, my official Twitch, not like on our Twitch.
Ah, okay.
You know what I mean.
Yeah, I could do that too. I actually think I have Twitch Turbo for another day or two. I had it for a while there while I was watching a lot of something. I forget. But then I got rid of it again.
Right.
What's up, thick lad Chungus?
So Infernal are gonna win the entire league? Maybe. It's a good thing, Rams isn't here to debate you.
Dead last. Worst team in the league.
That's only if you only watch NA.
Yeah. Oddly enough, this week started out the way this week started out for me. I only watched APAC, but then I went back and watched NA. Some of them.
Absolutely. Oh my god, dude. My fucking sinuses are so bad right now.
Welcome to the fall season.
Yeah, well, it is like 60 degrees.
Oh yeah. No, it was it's still 80 here today.
Yeah, Chicago's weather has been kind of fucked.
All right, man, you ready?
I'm trying to be, but yeah, okay. Well, we'll see. I'm already crying because my sinuses are so bad. But anyways, what's up, nerds, and welcome back to Heroes Never Die, your one-stop spot for all things competitive Overwatch and Overwatch 2. Before we dive into things tonight, be sure to stay connected with us over on X at HND Overwatch, and of course, you can find all of our content over on YouTube at HND Overwatch. I, of course, am your host, Simply Drunk, and tonight I'm joined by my co-host, Spyder. And Spyder, as we would come to expect, it's been a couple of weeks since we recorded. Balance-wise, already seen some nerfs to Yari as she entered the competitive fields. So can't really say, like, oh my god, I'm totally shocked by that. But, it definitely needed to happen.
Yeah, I mean, she wasn't super broken. I mean, I think the nerfs that they gave her, which we'll talk about specifically here in a few, I think they were okay. I honestly don't think she was that bad. Like, I played quite a few games with her, and maybe this was just like targeted at like the upper skill brackets, like the GM plus, but like around plat, diamond, where I usually play, she was fine. Oh, we lost your camera there for a second. But she seemed okay. I mean, I understand why it happened. It's just, out of everything they did, I don't know. She's still getting played here and there, which I guess means that she's in a more balanced state. Like she's not Lifeweaver where we didn't see any of her, but then she's also not like Kiriko where that's all we saw. So it's I don't know. We'll see how it shakes out this week. The meta seems to be going in a really interesting direction, and honestly, I'm all for it. Like, different teams can play different comps. Like we saw APAC teams play a little bit more of the Junker Queen, specifically like Dallas. We saw certain teams, fall back on the clutch over Risa. So we'll see where it goes. But in terms of Iari or Ilari or however you want to say it, I think she's in a good spot. I don't know. Like in general play, she felt fine. Like the ultimate was always kind of like a pub stomper ultimate. Like I don't know. Like I'd honestly say after like that first week, most people kind of treat it like EMP, and they kind of know when it's coming and they spread out. And most of the time, and we actually saw this in Overwatch League, when she'd go up to use the ultimate, she'd either die or not get much value. Like they almost used it kind of like Sigma's ultimate, to like reposition more so than to get frags. Now we did see a couple of cool moments with her, and I'm sure we'll see more of those as time goes on. But I don't know. Like I feel like this was jumping the gun a little bit, even though the nerfs weren't that bad. So we'll see how she hangs with the meta as time goes on.
Let's see what Chunk is saying. With how high level Out is written value with the ult, and you're trying to be a gunner is tough. I feel absolutely. Now, obviously with season 6, you and I talked about Overwatch 2 officially coming to Steam. We didn't officially have that in the show notes a couple of weeks ago. We just kind of slid it in there. I'm like, oh yeah, that was all something that happened. But obviously there was so much kind of going on that week that it kind of slipped through the fingertips. Well, needless to say, the arrival on Steam kind of went, I'm not gonna say exactly as planned, in regards to review bombing. Now, I will say just outright, this did not surprise me in the slightest. Of course, there was no way in hell all of these reviews were going to be based off of Season 6 exclusively.
No.
So a lot of times what was going on is people were complaining about Overwatch 2's monetization, obviously the PvE promises basically being completely gutted and us getting kind of bare bones minimum on that regard. And of course, it got to the point where it got so bad that as of early today, there's been 174,000 reviews. And we are currently sitting at a 9% positive review rate.
Almost double digits.
For Overwatch 2, which is the worst of any game on Steam.
We're number one, baby.
Existence in 20 years. So, because of this, Team 4's, sitting back and they're like, yeah, we should probably acknowledge this overwhelming negativity surrounding the Steam launch of the game. And of course, we had our game director, Aaron Culler, releasing some statements on that front. And this was also included in the last developer take. Mentioning, we also launched on Steam last week. And although being review bombed isn't a fun experience, it's been great to see lots of new players jump into Overwatch 2 for the first time. Our goal with Overwatch 2 has been to make the game more accessible than ever for more people than ever before. Many of the reviews on Steam mention a cancellation of the much larger component of PvE that was announced in 2019 as one of their primary reasons for dissatisfaction with the game. I get that. That announcement was about an ambitious project that was ultimately we couldn't deliver. If we can't turn back the clock, then what can we do? We can keep adding to and improving Overwatch 2. That is how we move forward. This means more maps, heroes, game modes, missions, stories, events, cool cosmetics and features, an ever-expand and evolving and improving game. This is a future of Overwatch, one where we will continually create and innovate on what is making the game great now for the players who are playing now. Overwatch is such a unique game and world. When our heroes are all working together to complete an objective, there's really nothing else like it. Jump in. There's more to come. Now, okay. as you would expect, we have the very PR-based answer, from Team 4 on this front. But here's my thing. We basically knew this was going to happen anyways, and I don't know if addressing it head on was actually necessary,
or the right call.
Or the right call. Yeah, it's just one of those things. It's well, of course, there's going to be a lot of negativity. And if you're seeing an increase of users, specifically because of Steam, then who cares what the review rate is? Doesn't matter if it's single digits or not. If the player base is improving based off of the launch on another for lack of a better term, platform, then the rating itself doesn't matter. Sure, are you into history books? Yes. Are you into history books for kind of the wrong reason? Sure. But you're still being talked about, and that's really all that matters at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, this is like the Streisand effect for me specifically, just because why would you go out of your way and acknowledge it? Like you obviously internally you want to take that feedback, and I'm sure they got most of the feedback prior to this. And I'm not saying these people are wrong, because most of the reviews were like spot on. You can go read some of the best ones for uh, for yourself. But you know, it don't acknowledge it. Just move on from it. And I mean, they Overwatch did pretty well. Like I'm trying to pull up the Steam charts now, and they were initially doing, decent. Like it doesn't look like they're doing great now on Steam. Um,
Since everyone's playing Baldur's Gate 3.
excuse you. I was in the middle of Baldur's Gate 3 when I stopped to do this. So watch your tone. I don't know. Maybe I missed it. But yeah, like the launching on Steam is good, just because it does give more people exposure to it. It eliminates the BattleNet client if you don't want to deal with that. Overall, it is a positive. And like I said, I agree with the criticisms, and I think this is a good place for Blizzard to get those criticisms. And anybody who didn't realize this was going to happen just hasn't been paying attention, because as soon as a company like Blizzard, who's had all these problems over the past, 2-3 years at this point, as soon as you open up a public forum for people to basically review you, it's going to get review bombed, whether it's Metacritic, OpenCritic. OpenCritic usually does some stuff to stop that, or Steam reviews, or Google reviews, or whatever. That kind of stuff's going to happen, and good, because maybe this will get through to Microsoft. Like, hey, we cannot have this, and Microsoft's very much in the business of, we are going to let our studios do what they want to do so that they can make us money. They are not going to be, hopefully, from what we've seen, the kind of bullshit that Activision has done. They will take the mobile unit and abuse the shit out of that for monetary reasons. But the passionate game studios, they generally let them do what they're good at. I mean, today is a perfect example of that, because there was a small game that came out on pre-release today that nobody's probably heard of, but it's called Starfield, that almost all of Twitch is playing today, and most of the people playing it are saying this is the best Bethesda game in years, and some say it ever, but that's much more muted. So hopefully, Microsoft's going to take this feedback from Steam and be like, okay, look, you guys can't keep operating on this. Are all this money that we just paid for this name, for this Blizzard IP, doesn't mean anything anymore. So hopefully this is like a good wake-up call for Microsoft. And, Chungus says it in chat, like, this is a good place to warn people about monetization. Steam reviews historically are not a great place to do that, because, and they mentioned this on Plat Chat too, but it is like the perfect example. Destiny 2 has like an 80+% positivity rate. And I've talked at length as a avid Destiny 2 player how shitty their monetization is. It is by far just as bad, if not worse, than Overwatch, because they lock content behind money, like actual content, and then they get rid of that content. So you can complain about Invasion being $15, valid, and not $5, but there are worse monetized games out there too, So Steam reviews, while it's a great place to put that stuff, I don't know if that's a great medium, but by all means, absolutely use that as a place to put things. Speaking of Steam, I did finally find it. They're currently
Okay.
sitting at about 17,000 players as of 3 minutes ago, which isn't horrible. And their peak, actually, this doesn't tell me their peak, but their average over 30 days is about 30,000. So, really not horrible when you consider most people that are playing Overwatch 2 are doing it on the Blizzard client. So, we'll we'll see where things go from there. I know my camera shit out. It'll come back in a second. Um, we're both having camera fun tonight. So overall, it launched on Steam. If you want to play it on Steam, play it on Steam. If you don't want to play it on Steam, play it on the Battle.net. If you don't want to play it at all, dude, I get that. I understand that as well.
Hey, it's like a choose your own adventure.
It's just like Baldur's Gate.
Exactly. And you don't even need to really know how to play D&D to play Baldur's Gate. You could just fuck around in character creation for hours before
Nope.
hopping in.
Who,
Like
who,
some
who would do
people.
that?
I don't know.
Who?
Definitely me.
Yeah.
But I did actually hop in today. But that's besides the point. But anyways, back on Overwatch 2 front, just as a reminder, if you guys don't know, we do have Prime Gaming incentives back for Season 6, offering players some free Battle Pass experience. And if you're like me and you're like, well, I definitely need help completing the Battle Pass, you can get 5 tier skips now until September 21st to claim the reward here. And of course, as always, in order to get this, I need to make sure you have your Prime Gaming and Battle.net accounts linked with one another.
Mhm.
So, here's the thing. For a while, I was like, yeah, I'm not streaming as much. I'm also not buying as much. And then my Prime was about to renew for the year, and I was like, I don't really need it right this moment, so I don't have access to this right now. So I'm just like, man, I gotta play more Overwatch 2
Oh God, it's always sketchy to me when games offer you incentives to not to play the game less. Like, it's
now.
weird to me that is their incentive. Like, hey, do you want to play less Overwatch but still get the same rewards? I got something for you. That's a little weird to me. But it's cool that it's there. I mean, I took advantage of it. I am, playing less Overwatch. Like I had been logging in every day and doing my dailies. Now it's a little less than that. Like it's like once every 3 days. But I'm still chugging along. And let me tell you, the PVE missions have been a godsend for that because there are some days that I'm like, I don't want to play PvP. Like in the one London PVE mission that we got that isn't a story mission, um, that has been great because it rotates, weekly, but still, uh, that has been like my go-to because I can usually knock out 2 or 3 of the daily quests in like one of those, and then I'm done. So, but some days I'm like, you know what, whatever. I wanna try Alari, or I wanna see how broken Orisa is and stuff like that. So then I'll hop in PvP. But yeah, I mean, Prime Gaming. I always have Amazon Prime. I have to. We order like household stuff through Amazon. Our kids watch the shit out of like Amazon Prime TV shows because they have like PBS on demand. So I don't have to pay for like Daniel Tiger and Sesame Street and shit like that. So I always have Prime. That's like that is like one of the few, I guess, streaming services that I can't get rid of. Like we cycle through the other ones like Hulu, Netflix, and stuff like that, Disney, as needed. But yeah, that one's consistent in our household at least.
Absolutely. So getting into the patch that was deployed this past week, Not a ton here. Obviously, the major component here was the nerfs to the new hero as she entered the competitive field for the first time. After being on the live servers for 2 weeks at that point in time. Also, taking a look at what they changed with her toolkit for Iari, they changed the healing pylon. So the heal was decreased from 40 to 30, and the shields were decreased from 75 down to 50. And then with her ultimate, the Captive Sun, the projectile impact and explosion are now blocked by barriers. They also decrease the projectile size from 1.5 meters to 0.75 meters. And then the Sunstruck duration was decreased from
Mhm.
7 seconds to 6 seconds. So not quite the almighty ultimate that it once was, at least in that first week or two of play.
Mhm.
And it's definitely interesting because with new hero releases, we've kind of been we've experienced both sides of the coin. We've had support heroes coming out who felt damn near unplayable and really didn't see all that much time in competitive play altogether, whether it was in our ranked games or in tier two slash the Overwatch League. And then, we had Yari coming out and we're like, oh well, this is definitely interesting.
Right.
Definitely more potent, just by comparison. Because with Life Weaver, we've had like 1,200 different things that they've kind of like gone through at this point, because Life Weaver was getting number changes throughout time and time again with the balance patches. And I don't know if they're necessarily completely happy still with the amount of playtime that he is seeing.
Doesn't look like it.
But we just got to the point where they're going back to the, okay, we want our new heroes to be powerful, but not too powerful. So she had her basically 2 weeks in the sun, or the captive sun in this case, and now it's just like, well, still usable. It's just a matter of to what extent. And I will be honest, I'm definitely behind still on last week's game. So this week, I need to make sure I hone in and catch the rest of the knockout stage, which is going on, specifically for the East.
Yeah.
Um, so I really can't speak for how much playtime we are seeing with the hero yet, but this was definitely one that's just like, all right. Obviously, the Overwatch League is just a completely different playing field, so I can understand from an in-game perspective why they want to tone her down a little bit as she is entering the field of play for competitive. Just because you don't want the new hero to always be like a must-pick situation when they are so new.
Yeah. And I kind of touched on it a little earlier, but I think some of these nerfs were unneeded, but I do agree with some of them. Like, I think the pylon, I don't think the healing was too much of a problem, but I think the health amount was a good thing to touch. Like, the shields was good. Bringing the healing down is fine. It forces Alari to actually heal a little more than go for frags, but um, I don't know if that one was needed. I think the captive sun changes. I think the being blocked by barriers I think was necessary because I think that was just a weird interaction. It was like at this point it was one of the only few things in the game that wasn't blocked by barriers. Most people remember back in the day like Symmetra's orb and stuff like that. Whereas nowadays, there's like the only thing that really goes through barriers is like Winston's left click. So that I can think of off the top of my head. Um, so I think that was like an oversight. I think the projectile size was fine where it was. I think it's a little hard to hit now. For most of us, I think if you're like Shu or somebody, like godly aim support, you probably landed a lot better. But I think that one was kind of unneeded. In the duration, the duration was the one thing I talked about on our last show where it did feel a little long. Like there were definitely times before it got nerfed where that even that extra second felt just too long because you were like, all right, I'm good now, and then you ran out and you were like, And you're like, oh, cool. I didn't realize I still had that on me. Um, even though you have the effect on your screen, you're tunnel focused. You're like, look, I haven't killed anything in 6 seconds. I need to poke my head out, even though I only have 30 health to shoot this guy. So, um, they're okay. Like I think as far as nerfs go, these are fairly tame. And like you said, you haven't gotten a chance to watch some of the games. Some teams in Overwatch League just avoid her. Like they just do not want to play her. It seems. I don't know if they don't feel comfortable on her or they just don't think she's the meta pick. And it's highly map dependent as well. Like Flashpoint, we don't see Illari at all, just because teams are almost forced to run the Lucio. So then they have to pick something else to go with the Lucio, because it seems like the Illari just doesn't have enough healing alone to support the teams. So it is very comp and very team and map dependent, but there are some teams that have been running her. Florida played a good amount of her. Um, so we'll see. I think it was Florida. I know there was one team that played her like every map except for Flashpoint. But I don't know. We'll see how this week goes. Like after the patch, teams are the first. What did we say way back? Like the first 2 weeks are always trial, and by the third week they're ready to go. Unfortunately, we don't have that lead up period this time because we only got a couple more weeks until knockouts in the West begins, and knockouts in the East have already begun. So there is a lot less experimenting in the East than there is in the West. Like Dallas Fuel is a good example. Dallas Fuel, we're running the Junker Queen comp because we know we can win on the Junker Queen comp. And I don't know if that was just because their first game they were the higher seed against a contenders team, but it seems like there's a lot less experimenting going on in the East. So we'll see how she plays out this week. I'm curious to see what her numbers look like after 2 weeks, because the first week, the teams playing her, you could almost write it off as a novelty. We did see one team take Fitz and put him on the support role, and just he only played Alari, so that was interesting. It didn't go great, but
It worked all the way to the lower bracket.
yeah, exactly. So, yeah, yeah. So there are some interesting comps out there. I think that was one of the first times in pro play that we've seen a DPS flex to support in a match that mattered, I guess is a good way to put it. We've seen support go to DPS before.
Yes.
There is the Ana McCree swap that is infamous at this point. And we've obviously seen DPS go to tank and support go to tank, but yeah, I think that was the first time we've ever seen DPS move to support that I can remember. So, but we'll like I said, after this week, I'll have more to say on her usage.
Absolutely. Now, outside of that, with the Overwatch League, we had an interesting shop rotation coming into play with the release of a new skin for all 18 Overwatch League teams that turned Reinhardt's Prideful skin into more of a fanatic. So each team had its own custom color scheme for the epic quality Prideful skin for Reinhardt. And it was part of a 2-piece bundle for 300 Overwatch League tokens. So each bundle would contain the skin as well as a golden weapon charm for the corresponding team of your choice. Now, what's interesting about this is the fact that this was the first time Team 4 has created a team-themed skin for every team outside of just a simple recoloring of the default skin. So, as we've seen, we've had the home and away versions. We've also had the contenders colors for, the default skins, but really nothing outside of that. The only team-specific skins that we have had were always MVP based or Overwatch League champion based. So this is the first time we've actually seen them going beyond that. And I guess in regards to like the name of the skin, this one probably makes the most sense. So I don't know like how much they're going to branch out. You know, with future renditions of this in particular.
Hmm.
But it was a nice change of pace. But I don't think that this is going to be something that they're going to go to the well at again.
I mean, they've done it for a couple of skins now, so they might pick and choose a few of them here and there. Like they did what was it, Rock Climber Zarya? They did that in all the teams. So um, I don't know. Like honestly, I don't mind it just because it is a way for them to make more money. Like it is I don't know, like that sounds so bad when I say it. It's a way for that, you know, this poor little Indian company to make more money, but it is a good way to monetize it so that the teams can make money because they did mention that they have new pathways to profitability. I think was the corporate jargon that they send out. So I'm fine with it. It's a cool ass skin. Like I like the base skin, so getting it in colors is cool. Um, it makes me wonder if this is like a test ground for rather than releasing individual skins, if they're just going to be like, hey, we can make any skin a team skin, and if you
Mhm.
want that, you can pay for it, which would be cool. Like I said, it's a pathway to profitability. So I'm fine with that.
So instead of releasing one skin, now we all of a sudden have 200.
Yeah, exactly. So there, I look, I shit on Activision for the shit monetization, but if we want the esport to continue, there, and this is like a longer rant, but I'll make it quick. If we want the esport to continue, there's got to be a way for the teams to make money, and this is a fairly low investment way for the teams to recoup some money. So I'm all for it. Like, and at the end of the day, you know, um, buy it or don't. It's up to you.
That is true. And, you know, if you don't want to buy it, you can always just add that into your Steam review for Overwatch 2.
Right. And you know, the other thing this opens is this opens actual, you know, Twitch or YouTube viewership rewards uh that, watch X amount of Overwatch League and choose a free prideful Reinhardt skin in any team you want, you know, kind of thing. Uh, stuff like that. So stuff that actually encourages you to play the game and not play the game. But that's a like I said, that's another discussion. So I'm fine with this. This is cool for what it is.
Absolutely. And with that, we are also at the start of the 2023 Overwatch League award season. So we do have voting going on until September 3rd. So, you know, later on the weekend, uh, especially for MVP voting. And of course, the winner with that will receive not only the MVP trophy, but a custom jersey patch as well. So looking at this, we have 10 nominees across 4 teams. We have from the Atlanta Rain, we have Stalker, Lip, and Fielder. For the Florida Mayhem, Someone and Merritt were nominated. For the Houston Outlaws, we have Shu, Violet, Fearless. And then we have the Soul Infernal with Skewed and Zest. And of course, you know, outside of that, we also have, Grand Finals MVP up for grabs, the Dennis Sawelka Award, Roll Stars, Alarm Rookie of the Year, as well as Coach of the Year. Now, I will say, you know, browsing on, social media this week, I did see 11 Kiwis rant about Coach of the Year. And, basically just to summarize, being like, well, how are we supposed to know? It's not like, you know, we're in contact with the coaches and, you know, they're not always really included in a lot of the interviews as well. So a lot of it's closed door. So it's like, well, how can we really have a good assessment of how a
Right.
coach is doing outside of just the bare bones level of seeing how a team has improved? season to season or just over the course of this season. But it's always one of those things where it's like, yeah, like 25% of the votes is essentially coming from the community as a whole, but the other 75% is coming from, a lot of like community leads, other coaches, players, commentators, and things like that. So it's just like one of those things where it's like, oh, I don't really know what we're supposed to do here. But when I saw like the MVP nominees, part of me was just like, I don't know how I feel about merit and zest, kind of like being kind of like the odder choices, but it felt so condensed and not really as spread out as what I initially would have expected. But I can't really say like I don't know who I would say would be the standout this year because obviously we've seen Florida Mayhem's improvement over the season, and someone that has been a major component of that. Lip has just been so lights out, and Stalker's been the one finalizing so many of the kills for the Atlanta Reign. And obviously, Fearless has had a huge impact on really, I mean, all of the Outlaws pickups have had a pretty major impact on that team and how they've done over the course of the season as well. So I don't know. I don't know if there's like a clear cut favorite to win, MVP this season, at least that I can see here.
I have a lot of thoughts about this. And it's not something that I want to get into at 11:43 at night. So I will condense this down and say my choice is Fielder because I like Fielder and I think Fielder is he meets a lot of the criteria. Like he does things for his team that I don't think other players can do. Um, he's successful. Obviously, they are one of the best teams in NA. I honestly think he should have been more in the running last year, except for Profit was not Profit proper was proper. So he kind of stole the spotlight. Uh, so I like Fielder for my choice. I honestly think most of these people, like you said, have a claim to this. Like you can, if somebody sat me down and was like, here's the reason someone should be MVP and listed all of the stuff someone has done, which, I've been paying attention, so I know most of it. I could be convinced if somebody said Lip is the reason that Atlanta is doing so well. I could be like, okay, yeah, I could see him over Fielder. But man, I want Fielder to win because Fielder has been the GOAT for multiple seasons now. Fielder was insane the first time we saw him on Ping, and he has been insane since then. So I'd like to see that. Plus, I'd like to see a support win. Just because I think if this is possibly the last season for Overwatch League, it'd be nice to, get a support in there on the MVP list to just round it out. So as much as I like some of these guys, I can make a case for Merit because Merit has also been kind of key to Florida's success. But yeah, Zest, I don't know about Zest. Zest is like the one I got hung up on.
Mhm.
I know my camera's it's back now. It does that. It decides it doesn't want to work, and I have to like
Mhm.
smack it a little bit. Um, as
As if
far
you were
as
a spider.
yeah, it'll do that one time, and then it'll cut to my like VTuber avatar.
Mhm.
Like that would be pretty funny. To like glitch out. As far as like the other categories go, I'm struggling this year specifically, specifically like the Internet Hulk Award. Um,
Mhm.
those were always kind of like I don't know. They were always kind of like obvious because honestly, that was one of the few players that would get like media attention, like Sparkle and Custa and stuff like that, Mickey and things like that. So I'm struggling this year because there really hasn't like Paintbrush maybe, but he's like just on the staff, so I don't know about that. Um,
Mhm.
and coach of the year is a struggle for me because I'm like, who would you pick for coach of the year? Like, would you pick Rush again? Like, would you pick? I wouldn't pick Christopher this year because they've had their troubles. honestly, if I had to pick a coach, if they were like, you are picking coach of the year, the only one that I can come up with is Gumba for Florida because of
Mhm.
what Florida's been able to accomplish. But I don't know if it's all on Gumba because like last year, you look at London Spitfire and they made um, they made a diamond out of coal. I guess is the nicest way I can put it. Um, Whereas I think Florida has talent there. I think Gun was just kind of pointed that talent in the right way. It's kind of like Moon with like the 2020 shock, or not the shock, the Dragons, the 2020 was it 2021 Dragons. Like you had the talent there. All you got to do is just like make sure they don't kill each other, and you're fine. So, but I don't know. I guess Gumbo for me. And to Lemon Kiwi's like uh, tweets or X's or whatever you want to call them now, like grievances, I guess is a good way to put it. I think she's spot on. Like I agree to 100% of it. If she has problems with it, just imagine how the rest of us feel. Where we're sitting out here like, wait, these teams have coaches? Like,
Yeah,
we
we're
would
like, all
never.
right, we're just gonna vote for whichever team is winning.
I like Gumbo because his name starts with a G and it sounds like Gundam. So uh, cool. So I agree with that. Like I agree like with everything she said about it. It's a weird category, but
Hmm.
yeah, this year has been tough for me. Like there hasn't been a lot of there hasn't been that proper where it's like this team would be nothing without this player. Because I think all teams are about where they would be if you took one player less, regardless of what the player is. And the only teams that I come up with that wouldn't be that way are Florida with someone and Atlanta without Fielder. Like I still think Atlanta would be really good. I just don't think obviously there would be a support deficit at that point, and I don't know if that would be enough to keep them in that upper echelon. So we'll see how it turns out. But yeah, this year I'm pleasantly looking forward to this because I have no idea who's going to win.
Yeah, well, I already know who I'm gonna cast my alarm rookie of the year vote for because it has been just a core identity of this podcast for several years at this point.
Sugar free.
So it should come as no surprise that I'm gonna vote for sugar free,
Yeah,
100%.
I wasn't even going to touch that category because that's the one category where I'm like I don't know who's going to win, but I'm voting for sugar free because, dude, I've been following that kid since he was like 12, and that is a quote out of context right there. I could have made it much worse. I could have. The initial version was I've been following that kid since he was 12 until he was legal. So that's your quote out of context. But yeah, I'm voting for Sugar Free for that one. I don't know if he'll win, but obviously he's been an important part of the Titans.
Yep. Absolutely. Now, looking ahead, as we mentioned, we are in the middle of the East knockout matches for the summer stage. As of this past week, that will come to. It's not going to come. They don't finish this week, but this is kind of like the midweek where we are figuring out who makes it into the winners round four,
Hmm.
as well as getting towards the lower bracket finals. And with the East bracket, of course, this was split up in groups A and Group B. So just taking a look at the current standings on this end. We have in bracket A, looking back at this past week, we had Poker Face over Condu Panthera 3-1, as well as Dreamers over, is that Rhodes? I'm trying to remember like what teams are actually in this.
Hmm.
That was 3-1.
Yep.
Uh, then we continued, and the Fuel 3-0 Poker Face, and the Spark 3-0 Dreamers. So that will be our featured match of this week for the upper bracket for Group A, with the Spark and the Fuel. And then in the lower bracket, we have Condu Pantera facing Dreamers, as well as Rhodes versus Poker Face. Then on the opposite end, in Group B, we had O2 Blast defeating the Guangzhou Charge 3-1. and Sun Prism Gaming over Shanghai Dragons 3-1. Tier 2 supremacy. Let's go. That's what you'd like to see. And that sort of continued because we had
Yeah.
the Soul Infernal beating Sun Prism 3-1, and then O2 Blast 3-0 the Soul Dynasty.
Just shit on them.
So
It was a tier 1 versus tier 2 team, but it wasn't the teams you thought.
Basically. But, we've talked at length about how O2 Blast is just a different beast in itself. So that sets up O2 Blast versus Soul Infernal for the upper brackets in B, with the lower round going between the Guangzhou Charge and the Soul Dynasty, and then we had the Shanghai Dragons going up against Sun Prism Gaming this week. And of course, with that, we also have our to be determined based off of, who wins those lower bracket matches, both in A and B.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, most of these games were like stomps. Like I went through and watched all of the semifinals, and then I watched what was it, the O2 Blast Charge game, just because I wanted to see like, oh, is this Charge drop in the bag or is it O2 Blast looking good? Turns out it was both. So and SPG looked good against the Dragons. Dragons still look lost. Like I don't think they've ever recovered from the Fleta tank situation. So I would see SPG just beating them again in the lower bracket finals because unless something crazy happens. This whole bracket system, and we were talking about it a little bit in the chat, is just kind of dumb anyway, because the people who make it into the actual play-ins, right, it's based off of season placement, right? So third through sixth teams in season placement in the East make it, and then I guess some people from the bracket make it. Like it's really weird and kind of convoluted and dumb. So I don't know. Like we've talked at length about this format before. Like we did when they announced it. We talked about it, and I thought it was dumb then. Like they were like, "This is the Apex format, and everything's gonna be just like Apex." I'm like, no, the format wasn't what made Apex good. It was the game and the competition that made Apex good. I think they should have just stuck with the double elim bracket and called it a day. I had been like, hey, these two teams make it because they made it to the end of the double elim, and the winner is the higher seed, and move on to the actual playoffs since we're still splitting the groups up. So I'm curious to see how this plays out in the long term. Like I could see certain teams getting screwed. And as a Dallas fan, I know it's going to be Dallas, because they're going to lose like one key match, and that's going to just fuck up their whole bracket run. So we'll see what happens. That being said, as much as a Dallas Fuel fan as I am, I think the West teams are much stronger than the East teams. Just watching the play from this past week, and I don't know if it's just because the East is playing the East and the West is playing the West, but just the timing and the flow, like the eye test, like something about the East, even Dallas Fuel, who looked great on that Junker Queen comp, something just didn't seem as good as like when Florida was pulling out all the stops and running at full steam. Like it seems like there's a disconnect there that isn't in the West. Like West is just firing on, like you're basically taking like a V6 versus a V8, right? The V6 could do great when it's versing other V6s, but that V8 is gonna stomp the V6 in most matchups. So I'm curious to see how this plays out. Chungus talked about Spark versus Dallas this coming week. Like Totem said, that is like our East matchup game of the week, and I hope Dallas wins because I don't know if I can take another Spark loss because I don't know. They're like they're done messing with the Seoul Dynasty, and now they've moved on to Dallas as like our kryptonite because they're like
Mm.
Seoul Dynasty's lost its mojo. So we're gonna be the thorn in Dallas's side. So we'll see what happens, but I don't know.
It-
I'm worried.
yeah, I mean, if they lose, I might have to get rid of this jersey.
Oh man,
The
I still have
power of the Gushui.
I have I have a Ryu Hong jersey that I still have back from the good old days. And then I just have a plain Spark jersey. So,
Yeah. Mhm.
and I have multiple Dallas jerseys. I can't.
Yeah, to your point with just the level of play in the East, like we've already kind of seen this play out already this
Mm-hmm.
season in regards to the
Mid-season
land
madness. Yeah.
competition with the midseason, where it's just like it felt like I'm not gonna say the East was running on empty, but yeah, it sure felt like that at times where it was just so
Mm.
night and day differential. So, even fast forward, a couple of months down the road, you can't really say all that much has changed since then. And I'm sure it's gonna be the same case once we do enter in the playoff picture here in just a matter of a couple of weeks, honestly, because
Yep.
postseason is literally right around the corner. Now that being said, again, this week we only have matches on both Saturday and Sunday, much like we did for the knockouts this past weekend. And with that,
Mm-hmm.
of course, we do also have our NA games. So taking a look at the lineup here for this weekend, on the west side, we have the New York Excelsior taking on the Vancouver Titans. That's followed by Boston Uprising versus the LA Gladiators. Then we cap off Saturday with the Florida Mayhem taking on the LA Valiant. And then on Sunday, we got Toronto Defiant facing the Washington Justice. Houston Outlaws taking on the London Spitfire. Then we have Atlanta Reign versus the San Francisco Shock to cap off the week. And I have to say, like, looking at this, I can't say I'm blown away by any of these like matchups per se. Um, I I don't know. This is kind of like just a weird week. I can't say
Yeah.
like if I were to like pinpoint what I would say is like, oh yeah, this is gonna be like a must watch. I honestly don't know if I can do that this week
No.
on the NA side.
No, like last week we had at least Boston versus Florida, which was a banger match. If you go back and watch any of the matches from last week, definitely watch that one because I think that one gave us the most insight to um, different comps running into each other because there was a lot
Mhm.
of back and forth there. Other than that, it was stomps. Like it was all stomps, and I feel like this is going to be, I think New York Vancouver is an important match because that's definitely like middle of the road. Like, can these teams make it, kind of thing? Um,
Mm.
because I think both. I know Vancouver is pretty much in it, but it could decide the fate of New York. I think if things turn out right, like if New York wins and London loses, which is a very real possibility, they could flip flop. I believe because I don't know if London. Yeah, if New York. So if I'm looking at this right, if New York 3-0 and London go 0-3, I believe at that point New York is in. I'd have to
Mm.
like dig back to see, because they would have the same um, map differential and they would have the same record. So I believe New York would go in at that point. The other one is Justice could win, but I think Justice are too far back, so I don't think Justice has a chance. Um, and
It's
Justice,
Justice and the Gladiators who were kind of SOL at this point with their map differential.
yeah. So honestly, most of the games this week don't even matter. So, yeah. So New York, Vancouver, and then London and Houston are the two important matches for make it or don't make it. Now there are some other matches that can affect seeding. Um,
Mhm.
minutely in the middle of the pack. So nobody in the upper three can drop down, and like other than what we just mentioned, no other teams can drop in or out of the play-ins. But there could be a little bit of shuffling in the middle. Like San Francisco can move based on how Vancouver does, and go up in seeding and down in seeding, and that will obviously affect where they end up in the bracket. So I mean, I don't want to say watch all these games because every map matters, because most of these teams are in at this point and they're probably thinking long term, like how much are the Shock really going to prepare for Atlanta at this point. If anything, they would probably just throw some shit against the wall and see if it works, because if they have to run into Atlanta again, they might have a better idea of what to do. But at the end of the day, these are going to be three games a day, and enjoy them for what they are. Pick up your Overwatch League tokens and enjoy them.
Yep, and when your team gets officially eliminated from postseason contention, we can always have teams like the Vegas Eternal posting all your fond memories of the Eternal franchise and just for gray images that don't actually show anything, because there were definitely a lot of memes floating around in regards to that. After they're still gone winless up to this point in time with that 0-16 record. Yeah, ouch. Just 5 map wins is pretty brutal.
Yeah, certain teams had more map wins in a single match than them. For the 7 series. No, I'm kidding. Obviously, that wouldn't happen. But yeah, rip to the Paris Vegas Eternal abomination. You will not be missed. As honestly, I kind of hope the Overwatch League keeps going next season. And I hope Vegas shows up again, because I kind of want them to take the crown from Shanghai Dragons as the worst team in esports history. So I honestly think they have at this point. Maybe not numerically, but obviously Shanghai has gone around and actually turned things around and won things. So while that season was the worst ever, I think the franchise has kind of redeemed itself at this point, this season notwithstanding, which obviously has been low to middling at best. But yeah, goodbye, Vegas Eternal. As when we do like our season wrap up show, I'll talk more about it, because I have notes. I've actually been taking notes, and I have a little spreadsheet called Overwatch League results, and I make little notes about certain matches, and there are a few Vegas notes in there.
Yeah. So Spyder is just sitting there in the corner. Have you tried betting it all on red?
Have you tried? Have you tried fielding Overwatch League players? No. So there's one coach that we had higher expectations for, and she will not be winning Coach of the Year. So yeah. So yeah, we'll see how this week goes. Look, if anything, I will say that Watchpoint and the Desk Crew have been knocking it out of the park recently. Like I don't know if it's the impending doom, but they have been having a lot more fun on broadcast. You can tell than they have been, specifically last season. Like I'd say this whole season has been much better. But yeah, they have been having a good time, and hats off to them.
It's definitely been a highlight of the season, no doubt. On that end, let's see. Chunga says, "I have a hot take. If Justice didn't make mistakes during Midtown, they could have won the map. Because Flora was farming on the legs."
I would agree with that. I mean, it wouldn't have changed the match results other than giving them a map, but Yeah, I would agree with that. Like, Flora's nasty if you let him run free. And there's another team that my hometown team, that has let me down. So, uh, I look, if the Overwatch League does continue as passionate as the Justin fan base is, I don't think they would come back. Just because I've met the person that owns the Justice, and he is very Wolf on Wall Street type of venture capitalist. So he is probably going to take that $6 million and just add it to his dragon horde.
Yeah.
Nothing's
And
impossible, though.
I don't know. I guess we'll just have to wait and find out.
Yep.
There's no guarantees at this point. Kind of like just winning an Overwatch League match. Nothing is guaranteed in life.
Yeah. Well, unless you're playing the Vegas Eternal.
Yeah.
That is
And
that is a
playing
guarantee.
as the Vegas Eternal. But
Yeah.
to each their own. Yeah, that's
It's rough.
it's rough. Definitely rough. I mean, we even have the vast majority of the contenders teams with more map wins.
Mm-hmm. I mean that's also true in the East bracket for some Soul teams. So the Solar Coaster is nearing the end, but they had time for one more dip.
Or it's more like you're stuck on the incline. We just haven't even taken the fall completely yet.
Dude, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of like an old wooden roller coaster, and they're like, this has been our constant. Like, think of the old days when you were on, the Comet. This was like our great old coaster, and then you look over, and there's this shiny new, all metallic, bright red, infernal roller coaster, and they're like, that is the new one. That is the one that one's gonna give us all the fun. And then you look back and you think of the good times you had on the one roller coaster, and then you put on that red infernal jersey and you just walk over and stand in the queue for the bright new roller coaster.
Or you ride the solar coaster, right? And then like the whole time you're like, man, this is really rickety, and you're just like shaking back and forth, and then you just hit your head on the back and give yourself whiplash. That's basically what it's been.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, we'll always have yesteryear, so that's all I'm gonna say on that front. Could be worse though. You could be Shanghai, but that's only a very, very minuscule difference over the grand scheme of things. Feels bad, man. But yeah, definitely go check out obviously the East knockouts, because there's a little bit more at stake, at least on that front, in comparison to the games on the West this week. But as we mentioned, definitely Dallas Hangzhou being the key matchup this week. But on the NA side, really not as much on the line outside of a little bit of seeding in the middle of the pack. We'll see what teams can create that sort of separation and who can leapfrog over one another.
Mm-hmm.
But really, like, no standout game, at least with the North American games, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is. But obviously, things are going to pick up here in just a matter of time with the postseason. So it's just like, all right, we could have a little bit of a lull before all the money is really on the line here.
I mean, it's
postseason starts September 9th.
I mean, it is a holiday weekend here in the U.S., so go out, have your hot dogs, have your hamburgers, whatever your local custom is. Enjoy your weekend. You can always catch the VOD. You can always come back, and if you're not really looking for Overwatch League coins, you can always come back, or if you are, just leave it up and then go do whatever you need to do. Not that anybody has ever done that.
No.
But you could always look at the scores and be like, hey, this game was 3-2. Let me go check that out. If not, we'll talk about it. So we're always here to be like, yeah, you can watch this one. Yeah, you don't need to watch that one.
Yep. But I will just note that in regards to, postseason schedule, everyone just kind of needs to be in the mindset of, matches are primarily going to be Friday through Sunday.
Yep.
At this point, for the remainder of the season. at most. Not all weeks are going to be like that. Some weeks it's just Saturday, Sunday, but Friday through Sunday is basically going to be more prominent throughout the course of the season up to this point in time.
Yep, and for the weeks that we don't have shows, I'll be going back to doing the quick like null sector shows. I actually was planning on doing one tonight, but last week obviously we had to move the show to tonight, and then I wanted to do like a pre-stream. Unfortunately, at work today we launched a brand new ticketing system, and that is still you guys don't see my setup, but I have 4 monitors. I have 2 up top, 2 down the bottom. The 2 up top are work. I am still getting stuff about those. Like, I had to close my email just because it was annoying me because I kept seeing them pop up. So it has not gone well. So I literally what was it, like 3 hours ago, I left it up, but I'm like, I am going to play some Baldur's Gate just so I am not in such a shitty mindset before the show. So I am on my second playthrough of Baldur's Gate. I am doing the Dark Urge playthrough, and it is, I've had 2 people permanently leave the party already, and I am maybe 3 hours in the game. So it's going great.
Sounds like it. So with that being said, guys, that will do it for us here tonight on Heroes Never Die. Again, be sure to tune in Saturday and Sunday for the Overwatch League games. And, if you're looking to reach us, you can do so a number of different ways. You can find us over on X at HND Overwatch. Of course, all of our video content is readily available over on YouTube and Overwatch League Network or HND Overwatch. And if you want to stay connected with us, you can join us over on Discord at discord.me/OWLN show. And outside of that, you can also find us on social media. You can find Ramses at Ramses_GG. You can find myself at Terminally Drunk, and I'm also streaming on Kick at kick.com/Terminally Drunk. And Spyder, where can our listeners reach you?
You can find me over on the X Twitter, at _Spyder Gaming, but honestly the best place is Discord. Like, I check Discord way more often, so if you want to talk to me on Discord, like whether it's through one of our channels or DMs or whatever. If you want to be like, hey, you had a shit take this week, I'll accept it. But yeah, Discord's the way to find me.
Absolutely. So with that being said, guys, that will do it for us here tonight on Heroes Never Die. Again, we'll be back in 2 weeks, and we'll probably have another null sector during the off week. So be sure to keep an eye out for that over on our YouTube as well. So you guys take care and have a good night, and we'll see you guys back in 2 weeks' time.
Good night.